Episode 2 of Classifying Roguelikes and Roguelike Accessories. Linguistics demands this one be Rogue Legacy 1 and 2. In 2013, the game single-handedly coined and popularized the term roguelite. That's roguelite with a T. Before, it was just roguelike with a K. It used to mean turn-based grid games with permadeath and procedural generation. The Binding of Isaac got really popular and then shifted the modern usage to mean procedural generation, yes. Permadeath, yes. I can do with or without the grids and the turns. That's for old people. So there was a schism between the old and the new roguelikes with Ks. Rogue Legacy got distracted a bit from the topic and went procedural generation, yes. As for the permadeath, it's kinda there. Firstly, Rogue Legacy is a dungeon crawler, but it's a 2D side-scrolling dungeon crawling precision platformer thing. Alas, my only weakness. It's not the most demanding of precision as far as platformers go, but the game does halt progression if the minimum movement mechanics haven't been mastered, such as spin kicks, jumps, dashes, and their respective upgrades. At any given moment, I am playing as a single character that I chose from a set of 3 or more randomly chosen characters. There are different classes with set passives, set weapons, and set talents given randomly that mostly define the general combat style. Quick example, Rangers always start with archery. They always have a base strength dexterity passive, and they always start with the talent Ivy Canopy. Genetic traits are thrown on at random, which can either help or hurt different playstyles. Example, if I end up with the pacifist trait, I boost my gold gain exponentially, but I am unable to damage enemies. That one in particular makes things a bit interesting as there are a lot of enemies. A lot, you kind of have to kill bosses. There are class upgrades, but most importantly, the classes feel different enough from each other to get a sense of different playstyles. A few keywords for Rogue Legacy 2, randomly chosen upgradable class-based characters with random modifiers. The original Rogue Legacy was a lot less varied with the classes, and they more closely resembled the Binding of Isaac's varied character stat starts. The first one was mostly just changing an ability and your health and mana bar, as you pretty much always walked around swinging a sword, no matter what class you were. To the environment, there are individual rooms that are structured randomly and randomly filled with traps, secret chambers, gold, and enemies. There are also other rooms that serve as static set pieces. The only thing really changing is how you get in and out. The unchanging rooms will always have the same layout and serve the same function to either give the player stronger rewards, lead them into a new zone, hold a boss fight, unlock an ability, or advance the story. So on one hand, there's the procedurally generated, and on the other hand is the static unchanging. Combine them, mix them up, scramble them around, disperse them into zones. Zones are always roughly in the same part of the world. Example, the game always starts in the castle zone, and these kinds of rooms will only ever be in the castle zone. The attic zone will always be above it somewhere, and the dungeon zone will always be below it somewhere with their respectively themed rooms. What can change is the route to get to the entrances. Maybe one run I have to take this big, long, girthy, veiny, winding path to the boss, and the next one it's right there, 2 rooms in front of me. I'd say it's about a medium level of procedural environmental generation. How does one traverse this environment? Rogue Legacy 1 has nothing holding me back except for the boss fights and my own map traversal ineptitude. The chambers themselves aren't locked. I don't have to kill my way out of a room. I don't have to puzzle my way out of a room. I just have to platform on through. Nothing stopped me from progressing or backtracking through the zones. If I was capable, I was allowed to beat the game on the first attempt. It's not a true hard bypass system because you do have to go through the bosses, but with so many roguelikes using boss fights as main objectives, I'll have to tweak terms a little and say it has a pseudo-hard bypass system. With boss fights becoming so prevalent in modern roguelikes, it's about as hard as it gets these days. But enough about me. Rogue Legacy 2 has found ways to stall progression. Certain zones cannot be accessed until I've completed a challenge in the zone prior to unlock an ability that will give me the utility to get into the next zone. Ways around that do exist. For example, I found the Icarus Wings bargain, which made it so I took more damage, but I could fly indefinitely. Well, I definitely flew over the outside dock zone, killed the pirate bosses with all the grace of a duck on fire, continued into an heirloom challenge which I passed with flying colors because, I could fly, and explored a higher zone I wasn't able to get to before, or after losing the ability to fly. I emphasize this sort of thing is an exception and not an expectation. Under normal circumstances, I could dart straight to the docks, but if I haven't gotten the echo boots, then I'm unable to do a spin kick dash reset to get to the next zone. What we have here is a soft, utility-gated bypass system, a system more commonly associated with Metroidvanias. The juicy bits this time are the consequences. At the start, once a character dies, that character is gone for good. Death is permanent. I have to select a new character class with new modifiers and do a new run. However, this new character is the heir to all my earthly riches. Those riches I can use to gain more classes, more gear, more level ups, and those are also permanent. And then there's also abilities which, if I unlock them, stay unlocked. Bosses I kill stay dead. Teleporters I buy stay open forever. Secrets I find stay found. And my upgrades and gear continue to be passed down by my descendants. I do lose my gold, and the environment does rearrange itself, but I can mitigate even those effects with upgrades as well. At no point in time am I in danger of completely starting over again unless I were to get belligerently drunk and erase a save. Rogue Legacy 2 offers a lot of ways to hand down inheritance, whereas Rogue Legacy 1 was more stringent on the generational wealth. Permadeath with persistent progression. Combine that with the procedural generation mentioned earlier, and we have ourselves the making of the first ever roguelite. Now personally, I believe roguelites are what game design would have become if old games weren't so obsessed with repeat video game rentals and eating all of my quarters. The emphasis of the game being on my legacy means most of the looting will be currency to spend on upgrades, recipes for gear, health items for the current run, and relics or curses, both of which I can lose after the run. They don't have randomized stats, they have set stats, the items are just given randomly. If you're a loot whore, that might not sound appealing. But if you enjoy your Metroidvanias, both of these games emphasize story progression and difficulty. I am meant to move along. I am meant to strive for greatness and final glory instead of incremental progress to be inherited by someone else. It is a dungeon-crawling, class-based Metroidvania roguelite with a T, and it feels like a dungeon-crawling platforming Metroidvania. The roguelite elements are there to help keep things fresh along the way. Some games are about the journey. Some games are about the end goal. Sure, the journey was nice, but how far did I get this time? And while some people do enjoy those fresh start one-and-done runs, I think it depends on what kind of game it is. A developer can get away with a little more narrative, different kind of pacing maybe. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I don't care. It's a thing that exists, and I'm putting a label on it. If you think there's other games that more closely follow this formula, feel free to leave those in the comments. Makes it easier in the end for me. I've been Frost, you've been the others, and this has been Rogue Legacy.